Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to an interview with the President of NISSMAT, Mr. Sipal Singh, who's a former police officer, and General Deepak Sapra, who's a former Managing Director of the Army Welfare Placement Organization. Today, we are going to discuss the status of the security industry, the private security industry, after the enactment of the PSARA Act. Mr. Sipal Singh, when did the PSARA Act came into being?
I may start with a few words that the workforce of a private security industry, as we all know, is today much more than the combined strength of Army, Navy, Air Force, and police. They say about 9 million people are today employed at private security guards, and the growth rate is 20-25%. Now, PSARA was introduced in 2005, and ultimately President consent came in March 2006. After the introduction of PSARA, what problems, what legal lacunas, what difficulties, work constraints and restraints were felt? That is the main issue to be discussed. We often feel, sir, and it is often said, very often the economists talk about institutional restrictions and constraint which hinder the growth of any industry in any country. One such important restriction is a flawed legal system of the country. Now, the Constitution provides certain powers to the states also to enact some laws as per concurrent lists of the Constitution. Interstate variations in law and at times interstate variations in rules, they completely make the particular legal provisions vague and varied in various states and vague to some extent. Now, the private security industry, after regulation, they saw a regulation that Private Security Agencies Regulation Act. I feel that this act is not regulatory in nature. A number of provisions or restrictions are more strangulating than regulating. Some section of this act are not properly worded. Their interpretation is varied from state to state, creating hurdles in compliance. Now, if you go to the details of various sections without naming the section as such, you will easily come to know what are the main restrictions and lacunas.
Sir, if you permit me to add to it, sir, to what Mr. Sipal has said, sir. Pre 2005, this was a totally disorganized sector. A very positive step was taken by the industry and the government, and they created an act. So what happened, sir? As compared to other industry, the security industry became more organized and earlier than others. Number one. Now, what happened, sir, when the PSARA Act came into being? I totally agree with Mr. Sipal saying there were enough lacunas. But my take is, at least the Act came into being and we started maturing it gradually. The problem comes up that today we are 16 years down the line when PSARA came into being, and still PSARA is not going down well with the industry and the environment. That means the lacunas are not being addressed the way they should have been addressed so far.
Precisely. That is what I am trying to say. That what was done, the word uses regulation. By making it a regulatory industry, to some extent there is some regulation came in. But instead of regulation, it has become more a problem. I am telling you, without referring to the section, that certain inquiries and verifications and certain no objection certificates are required to obtain from the police authorities. Now, this is a very cumbersome process for grant of license. Quite some time passed when the industry went on fighting that's not possible to get licenses, till the digitalization came and we were able to get no verification. Till the digitalization was not there, it took us 2 years, 1 year, 3 years for getting verification. And without verification, the Act says you cannot employ a guard. So this was another regulation which was inhibiting the growth. Then you see another section says that cancellation and suspension of license There are a number of restrictions on that. Now, Section 21 lays down that certain penalties. The proprietor of the security agency is punishable for 1 year imprisonment for some offense committed by its subordinate. And again, if the offense is impersonation, then the imprisonment can be much higher. Now, nowhere in law it is provided that the act done by one man should be made offense and punishable to another man. This is against the natural justice. If somebody goes, it is against the constitution. You can't punish one and two. But regulation says like that, our act says that we have not gone, nobody has gone to the court of law to challenge it at the moment. So I feel that there's restriction, but all the same, the restriction that continues. Specific records required to be produced at the time of when officer comes to the unit. It lays down that some records will be produced. What records? We are already, the security agency has got to maintain certain records under the labor laws. It has to maintain certain records under the Income Tax Act. It has to maintain certain records under the PF Act. Now, what records can be produced? What records show? It is vague. All records will be produced as demanded by the officer coming for inspection of your unit. Now, it is in contradiction with certain other laws. Tomorrow, one legal authority says something, the other legal authority starts inspecting, and it gives a lot of room to subjectivity of that particular person coming. He becomes authority that I am there, you put the records to me. How can an individual know, or the proprietary agency know what record is asking? He'll ask various records, and you are going to produce those records. So that also is very vague, I am saying. Now, how hurriedly this legislation was introduced is well known from the lacunas it suffers from. And some of the provisions are totally in contradiction with the fundamental rights of the individuals and are also in conflict with the prevailing labor laws. So my submission is, though PSARA tried to bring about certain regulation, yet the act was passed in hurriedly, and lot of lacunas, lot of vague definitions were left, which is not yet been cleared.
Now let's get into the licensing part of the business. A security agency has to apply as per the PSARA Act for a license from every state. If you are functioning in all the 28 states of the country, including the union territories, then you would be requiring something like 35 or 36 licenses before you can sort of be a pan-India organization. Now, how convenient is it to get so many licenses?
Sir, again, that is precisely, sir, what you are saying. You are almost endorsing my views. I am saying there's no such thing as a national license. They have not given us a national license. Again, here the question is conflict. The Constitution provides you that, all right, the Central Act can be passed. Now, the Central Act enactment or regulation is depending on the state, because the internal security is a state subject. In the transport industry, for example, they have passed, there's a national permit, which is applicable once it is passed. So in your case, or in the case of private security, one license issued by one authority is not applicable to other state. So there's no such thing as national license. And it's not possible because it is one side you say it is a state subject. Other side, we are passing an act which is a central act. So I submitted to you right in the beginning of my interview that there are a lot of lacunas, obviously for the reason that we ourselves are not clear. I mean, this country is not clear whether this act should, because there are a lot of lacunas, other acts also. Then a study was conducted when it said that thousands of laws are still there, which are not even known to some of the legal experts also, which are lying somewhere and catching dust. So this needs, the entire thing needed a review. And we have projected this thing many a time to the government, but the legislature, the change of an act requires again the full-fledged debates, and it has to be passed by the parliament. The act cannot be changed or amended. Only rules can be amended. And the rules were recently amended by model rules. Still, those model rules are only central rules. Whether they become applicable or they want to be applicable to state depends.
So my question to C.P.A. Singh sir is that it is a central government subject to be promulgated by the state government. Can the state government carry out any amendments to PSARA?
Sir, I am saying no. is, first of all, is not central government order. It is central government act. Act is entirely passed by the parliament. There are so many acts passed by the central government, and those acts, when they are applicable in the state, depends whether it is in the concurrent list, whether in the state list, or whether it is the list of unitary list. Now, in this subject is neither in the concurrent list, that is it is state subject internal security, nor it is a central subject. Its subject continues to be that of the state, because they are equating it as a law and order. Although security agencies are not, but they equate it with a law and order, and hence the central act has to be made applicable by the state. Listen to me, sir. This act was passed in somewhere 2005 and enacted in 2006. It took for the states to understand whether we should do it or not. Good about 6-7 years. Some state in the first 2 years, next state in the next 3 years, next state for about 6-7 years. There was no even uniformity whether all the states are complying with that. So obviously, this act is purely a central act. Rules are there. They are also called model central rule. They are not
So
rules.
now, so now I'll add to what Captain Pawan Ahluwalia was saying. It is a central act, and I take it then we should also get a national permit. There should be one central agency issuing a central certificate. Add-ons can be by the states, but one cannot run to 31 states and keep getting PSARA licenses all over the place. It's highly discouraging.
No, that is precisely what we are. I am also saying it is discouraging because this act as such does not lay down anywhere as a national permit. Act doesn't say anywhere a national permit. Neither the states are going to a national permit. If the state gives a national permit, how do a law and order situation in one state can be applicable in another state? National permit means that this particular agency can also operate here and operate in other state. But the other state may say, no, we are not operating like that. Their act is there. That act is there, but their rules are their own. The act also is vague.
Mr. Sipal Singh, I have known some security companies in a particular state where they had about 2,000 guards deployed in that state. They had a problem in one unit where one guard did something wrong, and the controlling authority felt that the conduct of the security agency at that particular point was not correct, and he cancelled the license of this agency. And in one stroke, he did away with 2,000 guards' employment under that security company. It is absolutely a horrific incident which has occurred in our country, and I don't think it should be repeated ever again. What are your views on it?
Absolutely. Now, here another conflict will come. A security agency may be having 2,000 guard in a particular state. I'm only saying for the sake of discussion. If that particular state says that your license is withdrawn, which means the license is withdrawn from that state, which means your 2,000 people, they become unemployed. But if it's a national act, it's the other way around. If it's a national act and one national agency says that your license is cancelled, that anywhere your guards are there, they'll be over. So therefore, there are...
So what is required is an amendment to the act which sort of facilitates the business rather than put curbs and strangulation on the industry. By this particular act, though there's some recognition that's come about, but the worst part is that it has also put too many curbs on the functioning of the agencies. General Sapra, you have been the managing director of AWPO. Were you ever confronted with the strangulation of the PSARA Act?
I'll be very frank, sir. When I was dealing with one or two institutions where we wanted to give ex-servicemen, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, I was trying for something in a university in Delhi. They were literally after me that we want that Army Welfare Placement Organization should have a PSARA number. And I said, see, I am only dealing with ex-servicemen. And why is PSARA mandatory for me? I'm doing it as good as a government organization. But they were not in agreement, sir. They wanted that we must have a PSARA number. Without PSARA, we could not proceed further. There was a big trouble, big problem. I never knew whom to approach, how to approach, and how to get it amended. And I'll be very frank, I could not get it amended. The rule still stands. If that is to be done, I require a PSARA number. So that problem is continuing over this.
Sir, I
So,
am
you see,
saying,
if you want to be sort of putting ex-servicemen, increasing the employment of ex-servicemen, what were the challenges that you faced as managing director of AWPO?
So, at times, what happens, we take it that ex-serviceman is a trained security man. It's a misnomer. It is highly wrong, sir. He's an army man. He's trained to carry out army functions the way he has been trained. The life moment he crosses the cantonments is totally different. And the security agency's job is totally different. Why I'm saying so, sir? The security agency that we know is generally of residential complexes. What about the industry? What about airports? What about IPL matches? What about scanning? What about hotels? Sir, these people are not trained. My biggest challenge was to get them trained for this particular purposes, for which there was no methodology existing, which we were discussing that some training institute or some places, but the people felt ex-serviceman is already trained. So when we link it up with PSARA, PSARA says he should be trained. Whereas in army, I've not trained him as the PSARA Act. So
sir,
there is a problem, which of course, as we'll go by and by, there is something way forward that is coming up in the form of a skilling ministry and NHDC. We'll discuss that later. It is getting rectified, but it has not been removed in totality so far.
Mr. Sipal Singh, does the PSARA Act apply? Is there any police organization which is similar to AWPO?
I didn't get it, sir.
You see, like Army Welfare Placement Organization is there for the employment or giving employment opportunities to ex-servicemen. Is there a similar organization under the Central Police Forces?
No, this is, laid down they have laid down certain percentage. That's this much percentage will come from the army. That's all. There's no such thing laid down. No,
So
no,
I'll clarify, sir. Captain
I'll
Pawan
come to
Ahluwalia,
my-
sir. I'll clarify. Sir, Army Welfare Placement Organization has been created only for the reason because our retirement ages are 35 onwards. CAPF, the retirement age is 60. They already finished their tenure, and nobody will like to have a security guard more than 60. That is why AWPO is a very unique organization, because he has to take care of a Jawan between the age bracket of 35 onwards till about 60 years. And it is a very, very unique, and that is why a retired army personnel cannot be compared with any other organization of CAPF.
may
Yes, sir.
submit. Now, the second part of general supply is absolutely correct. The first part, I beg to differ with him. As he says, they are not considered as trained. No, the Act says that in their case, in the case of ex-army people, the period of training has been reduced. Therefore, you consider them as trained to some extent. A. So, therefore, the Act says that this much will be. B. When we introduce the recognition of prior learning, we recognition of prior learning of the present security guard who are asked to undergo certain training. Our main issue, our main argument was that you recognize the prior training or having undergone training in army and give them certain facilitation in reducing their number of periods. Why not the guards who are already there, who have undergone some training or are already undergoing some they have undergone some period of duties, why not they be given some concession? Therefore, recognition of prior learning were introduced. So my submission is that guards of the army are given concession to that extent. In fact, that was the premise on which we based our recognition of prior learning.
Mr. Sipal Singh, you're so experienced in this line of work. Can you enumerate what are the difficulties that a person or a entrepreneur would face in starting a security company under the new regime of the PSARA Act?
So there are, as I submitted in the initial, everything. There is a lot of problems. First problem is, which you clearly brought out, getting a license itself is a problem. because getting a license, they have laid down. No, you'll be surprised to know in Haryana it is laid down that they should be having their office at the same state in the same. Otherwise, we cannot give you a license. In certain states, is already the headquarter may be anywhere, so long their branch is there. So there are a lot of problems a person has to face while getting a license. A. After he gets a license, then the question of conflicts comes. The conflict is that you have taken a license, but then how you verify your guards? The verification is pending. That is another difficulty for person that unless they are verified, they will not be taken. Third question will be, are they trained? Are they trained as per PSARA? Are they are not trained at all? Are they ex-army and you are giving them half training? So a lot of problem arise before a person starts an agency. Another very important factor I like to tell you, very, very important factor. The Act lays down that in case of non-compliance of certain clauses of the contract between you and the client, your license can be cancelled. Believe me, is the most
Absolutely right.
ridiculous, is the most ridiculous class. I tell you
And
why.
you know, a commercial dispute can be brought into a licensing issue.
You see,
No law should say that.
sir, a law says, and I'm telling you, a contract is arrived between the client and the security agency. According to that contract, some clauses are laid down. And if the client says that this particular clause has not been complied with, you, the authority is there with the licensing authority to cancel your license. Why? It is under the contract labor, or it is in a contract act, or it's a civil dispute. Why are you bringing in the regulation here to cancel their license? So I am saying what problems a person feels when he wants to start an agency with the regulations also. And I am of the view that unless you are able to streamline the regulatory authority and the entire act, and that is very difficult because it requires amendment, and amendment requires in the parliament. It is not a thing that you can amend it at the state level. So this has been going on. B. The other method is that somebody from some particular agency goes to the court of law and challenges certain provisions. And the court recognizes, yes, this is not in consonance with the fundamental rights. This is not in consonance with the contractual labor. This is not in consonance with certain enactment of the labor laws. That is not enactment. So they can by and by amend this act, unless it's amended and thoroughly overhauled by the parliament itself.
Sir, can I add to it, sir?
Yeah,
Captain
sure, go on, please.
Okay, so what happens, sir? This security business is growing at a pace which is phenomenal, sir. As I read very recently, is growing somewhere at the rate of 30 to 40%. And in India, it is yet to open up, and it is only there in class 1, class 2 cities. Tier 3, 3 or 4 cities, it is yet to reach. So with this sort of a force, which is 6 to 9 million people, I think could be more than that, sir. Definitely, there is a requirement of a proper regulatory rules. Like in army, we have a book called DSR, Defense Services Regulation. Might be having in police also, sir. We have a book called Manual of Indian Military Law. Imagine for the type of defense forces we have regulations and law. And this industry, I think, could be 50 to 60 times bigger than the security forces existing in India. And there is nothing laid down except some flimsy rule by PSARA. I don't think which have ever been amended. I think there is a regulatory book sort of a thing or a law required in totality. I agree with Deepak.
Let me just clarify. The laws, all laws of the country are applicable to people serving in the security companies. The PSARA Act lays down, I think, 9 acts like the Provident Fund Act, ESI Act, and Migratory Labor Act, and so on. There are about 9 acts which are clearly stated in the PSARA Act, as if the PSARA Act is going to comply with them. Plus, all the laws that are there of the country under the CRPC and the IPC are also applicable. So it is incorrect to say that there are no laws that are applicable to them. While in the armed forces, they function under different circumstances, and therefore they require different set of rules and laws to govern them. whereas the private security industry is functioning with the public at large.
Sir, you're using the private security industry. The word, this is a specific industry. Now, what happens? A law of the land is applicable to all. IPC is good to anybody in the country. But my point is, suddenly you cannot take away a license of a company for doing something wrong over there. There has to be some sort of a protection to those people and protection to the security guard also. Just by saying one mistake in this thing and your license is cost, I think the industry requires some sort of a
It
protection.
does. It does. There's a lot of amendments that are required. One last word from you, Mr. Sipal Singh. Closing remarks for this evening on the PSARA Act.
My point is of saying, it is not a question of act or a rule of the land, etc. This act itself has many defects and many lacunas. Nobody has challenged it. Everyone is going on and on, just like you have a tug of war going on between the agency and the controlling authority. Ultimately, agency has to fall in line with the controlling authority. Thereby, you lose not only the respect of the particular profession, thereby you are also giving fill up to certain things which are not transparent. Well, one example I say, one very interesting thing. It lays down, the act says that the controlling authority would be the person of the rank of joint secretary or IG, minimum, nahi likha. This is vague of the rank of, and it goes on the the same sentence goes on further that however, he can designate any other authority under him. So he will designate, let us say, he designates a head constable. Let us say he designates a sub-inspector. Let us say he designates somebody else. He becomes the controlling authority. So he visits your premises. He asks for your records. He is competent to get your license concerned. So that is why I say that the very prestige of the particular profession gets compromised. And this is a process which needs immediate action. We have expanded, there's no doubt. We have also developed, we have made it certain things, we have made it skilled labor, we have made a skilled card, which we can discuss in subsequent interviews sometime. But basic flaws and the basic restriction and the basic strangulatory measures for the industry continue to be there. We have not addressed them in the manner which are required to be addressed.
Thank you. Closing remarks from you, General Sapra.
Sir, I only look at this industry as a very big growing industry. It is becoming an organized sector. But when I read the organized sector, it says only about 40% is organized, 60% is still going on in a freelance basis. Sir, it requires a concerted effort. It requires a directional approach. It requires clear rules and regulations. And it also has to be user-friendly. By user-friendly, I mean is when we are going for Make in India, security sector is also making it, sir. We also require lenient rules. By lenient, I mean not which can be circumvented. I am talking of rules which are convenient for people to open their own security agencies and not be scared. Not be scared. So my take is, sir, that earlier we organized this sector, the better it is. This is one of the sectors which is going to give maximum employment to the youth of the country.
Thank you very much. I think this ends the first session of our discussion on the PSARA Act. And we will now get into the second stage of our discussion, where we will look into the lacunas that the PSARA Act has and the way forward in trying to solve them. Thank you very much to both of you, Mr. Sipal Singh and General Sapra, for being on the NISSMAT show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Regards, sir. Thank you, sir.